Hey guys, first video of 2023 and I'm super excited to get started this year. I have so many plans on what I want to do and what I want to teach and show on this channel, and hopefully it's going to grow a lot in this year as well as it has in the past few months. So I thought, why not start off the year with my favorite series? I'll be honest and say that I do not have that much time this week, so that may be also why. I'm planning on making some videos about my journey and what's been going on for the past like 1.5 years. And instead of postponing that and doing stuff, I'll just do a color grading video today. So episode 8 of Let's Color Grade, and today I want to look into some drone clips. So the first clip we have is a clip from the Mini 2 from the Philippines that Joya shot. I'll show her Instagram here. And the other one is my own from Bali, shot on the Mavic 2 Pro. And the difference here is that the Mini 2 is shot in a normal color profile, meaning not log. So we'll color grade that first. And then the second one from my Mavic 2 Pro is shot in D-Log, just to kind of show you the difference and the workflow. It's similar, but there are some variances in terms of how much you can do, but also just to show you that the footage coming out of the Mini 2 can be quite incredible. So if you got the drone, you are quite lucky because you can still capture some amazing stuff even though it doesn't have a log. So let's jump into Davinci Resolve and get started. All right, guys, we are inside Davinci and this is the first clip that we're working with from the Philippines. And this will be the second clip that we were working with from Cinnamon in Bali. So let's just jump to the first clip and get started right away. Since it's shot in Rec 709 or normal color profile, we want converted from log to Rec 709 first. So we're actually just gonna get started with color grading right away. I'm gonna make 2 notes to begin with. Our second note here will be our contrast, and the first one here will be our exposure. Now this shot I can see is already pretty well exposed, maybe a little bit overexposed, as we can see here, but it's not a lot and it's already got a lot of great detail and stuff. So the only thing is that pictures coming out of the drones in general are pretty flat. So we want to put some more contrast into it to make it pop a little bit more. And you can do this in any editing software in case you're watching and you're not using Davinci Resolve. So just go into the tone curve here and just drag down the shadows here towards the bottom, and you can see already from that I actually think it looks really good now. I'm not even sure if we want to go too far on the highlights here. But we might want to push them a little bit. And you can see if we push them too much, it starts to pull in a little bit too much whiteness here or brightness in the highlights here. So normally I would go pretty hard on this, but I think we're actually going to drag it back just a little bit. And then here it looks pretty good. And then I'm going to go a bit further again because we're going to adjust that in the exposure in a second. For the shadows thing, we just want to go and knock down more. And this is the difference already from before to after. Now you don't really have to do the exposure step. You could just adjust the contrast as you want it, but I like to go through this because that's the log color grading steps anyway. So just gonna do that here. For the exposure, I'm just gonna drag down the exposure a little bit here just to kind of see if we can get it to a nicer spot. I think this is pretty good. Now the highlights are pretty good as well. I actually think maybe it's a bit too dark now. So just gonna adjust the lift ever so slightly, dragging that up. And now we lost a little bit of that contrast again, but I think that's all right. Made it pop a little bit more. Actually, we want to go back a little bit here and then maybe just the gamma up 1. It's not going to be a lot because I really like how that looks. But just to brighten up these parts a little bit and brighten up the water a little bit as well. I think it was too dark here when we didn't have the exposure on, and now it's just brightened up a little bit more. So this is what we have now. I think that already looks pretty good. So the only thing I want to do, as this is, I think it's in 8-bit as well, so we don't have as much to work with in terms of the colors, but we still can do quite a lot. So the only thing here is I want to play around a little bit with the teal here. So this one is going to be our Hue Curves, or Hue Curve, and I want to play around with the teal and the blues here. So the first one is the teal, and the reason I'm clicking on these is then we get a point here in the middle, and I'm just gonna drag, I'm actually gonna start the hue versus hue, so I'm just gonna drag it in here, take the teal one here, and then just gonna play around with the one and the other way here. And I think I want to drag it down just a little bit to get this even more teal color out, but it's pushing it a little bit towards the greens, and then go for the blue and try and push that up a little bit. See what happens if we go far. You can see the dark areas up here is really where the blues are, so they turn magenta if we pull it down. They will turn a little bit more teal if we pull it up. I don't think we want to go too far, so just around like 5 down here in the hue rotation. and it's very, very subtle, but just gave us a little bit more push towards the colors that I want inside of the teals here. Also inside of the blues, we might want to go just a little bit further here. So maybe just push it up until 10, like so. And then let's just take a look here again. We can go a little bit further, so we can go to around maybe -5, like so. And I just pushed it a little bit more. So this was before. You can actually see some more green tones here, and this is after. So just a slight adjustments here, not too much. You kind of want to keep it as it is, and this is a beautiful shot already. So you can see this is what we've done with the first 3 nodes here. It's quite contrasty. You can of course go easier on the contrast curve here, the custom curve, and make it a little bit easier. I like this contrasty pushed look, so that's what I'm going for in this case. I actually think, looking at it again, that the shadows down here might be a little bit too much. So the only thing I want to do is I'm just going to drag this up a tiny bit, just to soften out the shadows a little bit and preserve some more detail. And that's pretty much going to be it for our hue here. Gonna look at the saturation, just gonna see what we can do. I think we want to take a little bit of saturation out, 0.95 maybe. And for the blues, I definitely want to take out some of that saturation up there, just to make them a little bit deeper. This is a lot better. Now it's more of a deeper blue color up here. And I think the teals here are balanced a little bit more as well. Now, one thing we didn't touch upon before was the greens. I actually like how they're looking here. We don't have that much information. I'm pretty sure the greens lie around the yellows here. Just try and click a point here and drag. Yeah, they lie right around here. And we could play around with these as well, but I actually think they are in a pretty good spot as where they were just captured. So the only thing I want to do is maybe go into the saturation. I'm just going to pull on the yellows here and just pull down the saturation just a little bit, very, very subtle, like 95 again, just to kind of make it a little bit less saturated here. And then I want to go into the luminance, and for this I actually want to push up the greens just a little bit, give it a little bit more of that contrasted look. I think that looks pretty good. Then for the teal and the blues, for the teals, definitely want to push a little bit more light into that. Not that much, but maybe around 1.10, just to brighten it up and give it a little bit more of a push. And then for the blues here, just gonna drag that one way and the other to see how it looks. And it really mostly affects down here, the houses here. And I actually think we want to go a little bit on the plus side here as well, just to brighten them up a little bit, because I think that looks pretty good. So that's what we did with the hue curves. I'm not sure we want to do that much more. The only thing I think could be fun is to play around with some masks. So I'm going to make another node here, and I'm actually just going to make a outside node. So what this does is that anything we mask out in this one, the opposite is going to be selected for the second one. So what I want to do here is I just want to pull in the attention a little bit more to the middle here. So I'm going to make a round mask here and just drag it out quite a bit and then soften it out. Click Shift H to see what we're doing, and this is pretty much exactly what I wanted. So just gonna affect the outer corners here. Then I want to go into my primaries again, and I'm just gonna drag down the gamma just a little bit here. Maybe drag up the gain a little bit, just to counter it a little bit, and then the lift a little bit as well. See what that does? It really pulls in the image to the middle. And this is what we wanted to do. So that was wrong before. I want to hit this one to make sure that it affects everything on the other side. So now it looks like this. It doesn't affect the middle, which is what we wanted. Might actually feather it in just a little bit more, like so, to make sure that it does like this. And now you can see in the mask out here that it doesn't select anything in the middle. That's the gray area. And then on the other one here, it does select stuff in the middle. So here I just want to push the contrast a little bit more. So I'm just gonna make a point here, drag down the shadows a little bit, and then up here, drag up the highlights a little bit. And you can see that just makes it a little bit more contrasty in here and pulls in the focus even more. So you can see what we did with these. Just kind of draw the attention into the middle by darkening everything else and really just emphasizing it in here a little bit with the tone curve here as well. So this is our outside, we could call it, and this is the inside. So this is basically what we did from start to finish. This is what we started with. Pretty nice shot, I would say. And this is what we ended up with. After just a few easy adjustments, Nothing too crazy today, just taking it easy with the exposure, contrast, the hue curve, and then an outside and inside node, kind of to show you how that works as well. And that's it for this clip. I think we want to move on to the other clip. So let's do some similar things here. Actually, let's just, for the fun of it, try and copy the grade from this clip to this clip. And the only thing we need to do then is to drag in a color space transform and convert it from D-Log and this one to Rec 09 and Gamma 2.4. Now I knew immediately that this would be too dark. Hide the clips again. So just gonna go in and reset our exposure here. And I know from working with this clip a lot that we just need to drag up the offset. And this actually worked pretty well as well. So let's just see what we've done. Went from this to this in just a matter of clicks. But if we go in and select all these clips, you really see this is the grade that we did with the inside and the outside nodes and the contrast and the hue curve as well. The hue curve is really not affecting that much. So let's reset this. Actually, we just want to reset part of it here. So we want to keep our color space transform just to transform it from the log that it is beforehand and to this. This already looks pretty good. So let's just make a few new nodes. Do the same thing here. Pull in some more contrast, like so. And this shot is particularly a little bit difficult sometimes because it was shot early in the morning and the highlights are pretty blown out. And the darker areas here, the shadows are pretty dark as well, even though that's what I went to try and preserve. So it kind of worked, but not perfectly. I'm going to go into our exposure here and just increase the offset a little bit. And for the greatness of it here, let's just name these contrast, exposure. This one is our CST, or color space transform. All right, let's do the same thing here with the hue curve. Just gonna go in here and play around with the colors. Here we can see again, we have a lot of information in the blue areas. That's particularly this part up here, but also the water, of course. And then we have some green and some orange tones here. The important part of this shot is that the orange tones will be the skin tones, so we don't want to do anything with them. So I'm actually just going to highlight these first, see where they lie over here. Make sure that we're not touching this part. Then I want to check where the blue tones lie. That is right in the middle here. So by adjusting our teal and our blues, we will get that. So right-clicking these and then just clicking on the points here to control the full teal and the full blue colors. Just gonna rotate these ever so slightly. And the reason you can see my graph here move around is because I've set it to histogram and then show output. If we show input, this is what it looked like before we did anything from what it came from the other node. And if we are working in the output, then we can see what we're changing. We can kind of see how the hues shift around, which is something that I like to do. So you can see by pushing some more blue into it, we see the colors shift to blue. And we also see the tones shift a little bit more to the blue side. So now it's a great mix of blue and teal in this kind of darker teal color, which I like. And then the blue one, just gonna drag that down a little bit. So maybe to -5, just like that. Gave it a little bit more of a magenta look. Not sure if I like that. So maybe actually drag it up a little bit instead, 2.5. I think that looks a little bit better. I don't like the colors up here in this clip, but we'll just work with it as much as we can here. Then for the green tones in here, let's just see where they lie. They lie around here. That's pretty good. So let's just add another node here. That's what we had before from our teals. And just get the green tones here. And then play around with them. I'm just gonna play around with them like so. And I'm just gonna drag them down a little bit to push more green into it. I think that looks better because now if we go into the saturation, just make a few notes and everything here and just make sure that we get the tones here as well, lock them in so they're not changing. We are gonna desaturate the greens pretty hard because I like a more desaturated look for this one. So down to 0.35. And I am gonna desaturate at least the blues a little bit as well, quite hard, maybe down to 65, and then the teals as well. Even though I like the teal colors, I do not like how much of a saturation it has up here in the mountains. So that's why I'm gonna pull this down to 65 as well. And now you see a lot of this hue and tint we had in the mountains up here are gone. Still doesn't look that great, but it definitely looks better. We also lost a lot down here in the water, but I would rather lose that than having it way too strong up here. And then we desaturated all of our green tones here as well. but we preserved everything going on here in the middle because we locked those off, making sure that we are not touching these tones and the range within them. So I think this looks pretty good as well. We could go in and see if we wanted to do anything. I might actually want to do the same thing again, marking the tones here, the skin tones. Go into the greens and just pull down the gain a little bit here on the luminance to around 0.50, and then do the same for the blues, not as far, like 85, and maybe on this one as well, down to 85. And I think that looks a lot better. Now we took out a lot of the luminance of these as well and just kind of like pulled them in a little bit. I think this looks pretty good. From what I'm seeing now, I like this kind of more desaturated look, especially as we locked off the oranges and the skin tones here. So the subject, my friend Grit, she's standing out a lot more in the image now than she was before. Now she's blending in the teal tones and the green tones, and now it's more desaturated, so we really have our focus in here. Now to make this one simple as well, just gonna make a outside node here as well to make it quick and simple. So we're gonna make the outside node, gonna do the same thing as before. First one, I want to kind of make sure that we're not pulling anything in. We want to pull more attention into our subject here. Something like this, and then feather it out. See what we're selecting. Select the opposite. Might want to pull it in a little bit more here, like so, and maybe feather it in a little bit more, just to make sure we're not really hitting her. And then we're going to look at the entire clip and see she's moving to the left. So we actually want to make sure that this is a little bit wider, like so, to see if we didn't entirely hit her. So what we could do is we could try and track it, and let's just see if it works. I'm not sure it'll be great. So interactive mode, and then just we only want pan, don't really want anything else. So let's just see if it can track, and it doesn't track anything at all. Just reset that. Doesn't matter. I think it's fine. Let's just see what it does. So right now we selected anything on the outside. Just gonna drag down the gamma a little bit, drag down the gain a little bit, also drag down the lift, just pulling in the image a lot more, seeing how it affects us down the line. I think it still looks pretty good. So that's what we're gonna do. And then for this one, I'm gonna do kind of what we did before, just make a very, very slight curve here. To see that we are pulling in a little bit more contrast here, just to pull in the focus on the midground of our clip. So very, very subtle, at least for the second one. So this is our outside node, this is our inside. All right. So coming from this to this in just a matter of a few adjustments, and we really pulled in a lot more of a contrasty and push look, but I do still think it looks pretty nice, and it really pulls in the focus to our midground and the subject here. So I think that looks really good. And I still don't like the mountains. We could work around with that with qualifiers, but honestly, it always messes it up a little bit. So I think we just have to let that go and just have that as it is. So I think without making this one too long, the only thing I want to do now is just kind of show you my LUTs. So I just updated my drone LUT pack. So we have it in here. We have the non-log and we have the D-log. So for this first clip, the non-log would be great. We have all the new version 2 ones here, and the base ones are just kind of like to adjust what we basically did in the beginning, but it doesn't have much stylistic things going on. And then we have some other ones. Desaturated one can look pretty good. It makes it more of a flat look. And then the ocean chill is my favorite for this kind of clip. You can see with one click, this is pretty much what we came to. Then we could adjust our exposure a little bit and then see what we had. But I think this looks pretty good. And if we go 2 clips backwards, it's not that much of a difference. We definitely have a little bit more of a push look here, but I still think this looks pretty good, and we could have a very nice and easy base to grade from. Just increase the luminance of the teals here, and then we would be in a very good spot. And for the last clip here, we have a D-log version here as well. This works the same way with the base. Now this is a very dark clip, so we definitely need a node before, and then we need to increase the offset a little bit, like so. And with that, 2 quick adjustments, we go from this to that. And I think to get this kind of desaturated look that we had, this is the problem that we encounter with this one now, that it desaturates everything. I still think it looks pretty good, but now she's desaturated as well. I think if we use the teal one, we also have a pretty nice look, and we preserved everything here. It definitely looks different. So these are just quick ones, and then we could do the same thing as we did before. Just grab our outside and our inside nodes, put them in here, and then we could achieve a lot of the same things that we have here. So that was just to show you how you can quickly grade some drone clips, in this case both with some teal tones. I hope you liked it, and of course I had to do a little bit of a showcasing of my drone LUTs, as that's one way that I make money. So if you want to support me and if you want to get those LUTs, there is a link down in the description, and you can save 25% if you use the code YouTube25 as well. So there's a little bit of something for you there. And apart from that, thank you so much for watching. If you made it all the way to the end, I really appreciate you. And I also do otherwise, but you won't hear this message. Anyway, until the next time, take care.